You walk into a room and time forgets its manners. It hushes. It stops counting. It leans in, curious. Why does she glow like that? How does he hold such brightness? Today, I offer you something more than beauty secrets. I offer you truths the mirror never told you. Stay with me, not because I promise magic, but because I will remind you that you've always had it. Some say age is a number, but baby, numbers tremble before presence. The first hidden reason, your spirit refuses to shrink. You've lived, oh, how you've lived, but you have not allowed the world to fold you. You expand, you sing, you fight with elegance. That kind of fire keeps the clock off your skin. Second, you carry grace like gravity doesn't exist. You've fallen, but you landed in wisdom, not wrinkles. You've suffered, but you wear survival like silk. That grace, it slows down decay. It makes you timeless. Third, your laughter is your skincare. It doesn't just lift your cheeks, it lifts entire rooms. It cracks the walls of sorrow. It's the sound of youth wearing an old soul's coat. Fourth, you wear peace like a perfume. Worry ages us faster than time. But you have found stillness. You are calm in chaos. That serenity, it's your secret serum. Fifth, you eat wonder for breakfast. You never lost your child eyes. You still marvel at a sunrise, still gasp at moonlight. You keep learning, stretching, reaching. Growth keeps you glowing. Sixth, you are loved, and what's more, you know it. That love from self, from others, from above, has lifted your chin, softened your scowl, and filled your heart. Loved people look younger. Loved people are younger. And finally, the seventh, you may have forgotten this one. You have never let anyone else define your worth. Not age, not culture, not magazines. And when you live like that, wild, loved, graceful, laughing, you don't age. You evolve. So let the calendar tick. Let the mirror reflect. But know this, you are not defined by years. You are measured in wonder. You walk with a knowing that was carved long before you had a name. Not arrogance, not noise, but a quiet, pulsing truth inside your bones that says, I will not be made small. And in a world that profits from shrinking souls, trimming dreams, silencing laughter, straightening out the wildness of our wonder, you refuse to comply. The years have tried. Oh, they have tried. They brought their tools, their measurements, their rulers of too much and not enough. They came with labels that smelled like limitation and sounded like shame. Too loud, too sensitive, too bold, too ambitious, too old. They tried to wrap you in smaller and smaller expectations. They called it maturing, but it was really shrinking. They told you to settle, to hush, to tone it down. But something in you wouldn't, couldn't, didn't, because your spirit remembers when it ran free, when it sang before it spoke, when it danced before it walked. That memory has roots deep inside you, and even when the world poured concrete over them, they kept reaching, kept growing. You may have doubted, yes, you may have dimmed, but you never disappeared. There is a radiance in you, not because you have escaped pain, but because you have not allowed pain to define you. The truth is, some people are younger than their years because they are still curious, still tender, still open, and you, despite the scars, despite the weight, despite the long nights and short joy, have remained open. That's the secret the world doesn't know. Youth isn't in the skin, it's in the yes. The yes you give to life. The yes you whisper when no one is looking. The yes you offer to new beginnings, new risks, new joys. The yes to feeling, even when it hurts. The yes to loving, even when it's not returned. The yes to dancing, even when there's no music. See, it's not that age hasn't touched you. It's that your spirit never asked permission to grow dim. Your spirit walks like it still has dreams to chase, songs to write, love to give. You haven't let the calendar collect dust on your soul. You haven't let the world convince you that being grown means being jaded. You still find wonder in the ordinary. You look younger because your spirit is still awake. You say yes with your posture, with your presence, with your patience. You say yes with your eyes, still alert, still shimmering, still searching for light even in the shadows. You've become the kind of person who lights up a room without opening your mouth, who shifts the atmosphere simply by standing tall. And make no mistake, and standing tall is a revolution, because this world will try to fold you. It will hand you disappointments like wrinkles. It will layer grief over joy like dust on a mirror. But you clean the mirror with memory. You polish it with defiance. You speak to it, I am still here. I still matter. Your youth is not an illusion. It's an act of resistance, a decision. Every morning you wake up and choose to try again, love again, dream again. You are choosing life. And life, when honored like that, has a way of clinging to you. There is a kind of strength that does not roar, does not flex, does not demand attention. It just is. It walks with grace and humility, but it's sharp as a sword. That strength is yours, that quiet fire, that sacred defiance, and it burns away fear better than time ever could. Some people search for the fountain of youth in pills, potions, or praise, but you found it in your own chest, in your own footsteps, in your own ability to remain soft in a world that hardens most. You kept your heart warm, your edges open. You have looked age in the face and smiled with no apology. You've stared down loss and kept singing. You've endured betrayal and kept giving. You've been bent by storms and kept blooming. That is why you look younger, because nothing about you has given up, because your spirit keeps growing like it forgot the rules, because your soul still believes in beauty, because your fire has outlived the wind. And that, my love, is what they see when they see you, a spirit that refuses to shrink. You do not walk, you glide, you do not fall, you land. Not because you've never stumbled, not because life hasn't pulled the ground from under you, but because you have learned how to descend with dignity and rise without complaint. Where others crash, you settle. Where others clench, you unfold. There is a way you move through the world that defies what the world expects. It isn't loud, it isn't flashy, but it is unmistakable. Your presence speaks without force. It bends without breaking. It gives but never disappears. That is not fragility. That is grace. You carry yourself like you've known the floor and still prefer the sky. Life has tried to weigh you down with its gravity, pulling at your confidence, your hope, your joy. But somehow, you found a way to float, to lift, to keep your soul upright even when your knees buckled. That's not magic. That's muscle, soul muscle, the kind you build through sorrow and stillness, through heartbreak and healing. You know what it is to walk through fire and smell like freedom. You know what it is to carry loss in one hand and love in the other. You've lived long enough to understand that beauty is not in youth, it's in composure. It's in the way your hands stay open after they've been emptied, in the way your mouth still smiles after all the goodbyes, in the way you forgive not because they asked, but because your spirit refuses to carry chains. That's what keeps you light. That's what keeps the years from showing. There's a stillness in you that isn't silence, it's wisdom. You've stopped chasing the world, not because you're tired, but because you've realized the world spins fast enough without your worry. You've learned to sit in the center of yourself and find peace there. And that peace becomes visible, like light on your skin. It softens your eyes. It smooths your movement. It slows the clock. Some people age because they carry every offense, every failure, every fear on their shoulders. You've learned the art of release. You've learned to shake the dust without cursing the road, to thank the lesson without repeating the pain, to part ways with what no longer fits, not with bitterness, but with reverence. That's what grace looks like. And grace is ageless. You do not compete. You don't have to. There is something in your walk that says, I already belong. And when people see that, they do a double take. Not because your face hasn't changed, but because your energy hasn't hardened. You move with the softness of someone who doesn't need to be first because she knows she's not late, who doesn't need to be loud because she knows her power lives in quiet places. You have learned to let go without losing, to surrender without shrinking, to accept without settling. That's the balance that makes people stop and wonder, what's different about them? They think it's skincare or luck or maybe genetics, but it's none of those things. It's the grace with which you carry everything you've been through. You've stopped demanding that life be fair and started choosing to be free. You've accepted that not every battle needs a soldier, not every wound needs a spotlight, not every injustice needs your peace, and that wisdom gives you weightlessness. Because what ages us is not time, but tension. And you have become the kind of person who unknots the tension before it hardens. You breathe through discomfort. You pause before you react. You don't have to prove your worth to rooms that never deserved your voice. That freedom, that lightness, it shows. And when the world is noisy, you return to yourself. You tend to your soul like a sacred space. You rest without guilt. You dream without deadline. You give without draining. That rhythm has slowed your aging more than any cream or correction ever could. People will say, you're glowing, and they won't know it's because you cried your way to clarity, that you grieved so deeply you emptied out the parts of yourself that were never truly you, that you laughed even when the sky was gray, that you let go of who you thought you had to be, and that letting go made room for light. You've worn grief like silk. You've carried shame like mist. You've taken every heavy thing and turned it into poetry. And that's what keeps your back straight and your eyes bright. You don't live in a world without weight. You've just found your wings. And when gravity calls you down, you rise anyway, because grace doesn't stop you from falling. It teaches you how to rise beautifully. There is a sound that rolls out of you like sunrise over still water. It is not forced, not polite, not rehearsed. It bubbles up from somewhere deep, older than memory, wilder than manners. It is laughter, and not the kind that passes through the teeth like smoke. Yours comes from the bones, from the belly, from the places inside that still believe life can be beautiful, even when it's not behaving. You have laughed in rooms where you were told to whisper. You have laughed when you had every reason not to. You have laughed while tears were still drying on your cheeks. And that laugh, that radiant defiance, has kept you young in a way no science can explain. People think laughter is decoration, something you do after the work is done. But you know the truth. It is not an accessory. It is an anchor, a medicine, a rebellion. In a world built on speed and scarcity, your laughter slows time and multiplies abundance. It reclaims joy from the jaws of worry. It plants light in places long gone dark. That's why it shows on your face, why it lingers in your eyes, why people tell you you don't look your age without realizing that youth has been echoing from your laughter all along. You haven't just aged, you've danced through time. You've held heartbreak in one hand and humor in the other, and somehow managed to stay whole. It isn't that life hasn't tried to strip you, it has. And some days it succeeded, but your laugh came back. And when it did, it brought color to your skin, shape to your soul, and rhythm to your steps. You learned early that laughter is not a betrayal of pain, but a balm for it. It is the way your spirit exhales, the way your soul stretches out the bruises until they stop hurting so much. Some people let sorrow wrinkle their skin, But you let joy iron yours out. You've laughed at the ridiculous, the tragic, the tender. You've laughed in traffic, in hospital rooms, at kitchen sinks full of unanswered prayers, not because everything was okay, but because you decided not to wait for perfect conditions to celebrate being alive. People ask you, "What's your secret?" But they don't realize they've already heard it. It's in the sound you make when something truly tickles you, not just in the moment, but in your marrow. It's in that sudden burst of sound that fills the air with warmth, that brings down the armor in others, that says, even now, there is joy. Because you don't laugh to escape reality. You laugh to honor it, to baptize it in something softer, to remind yourself that pain is not the only guest at your table, that grace still visits, that delight still dances. You understand something the world often forgets, that laughter is sacred, that to laugh, especially when things are broken, is to declare that you are not, that there is still something inside you untouched, unspoiled, undefeated. That is not immaturity, that is strength. That's what keeps your heart young, the way it still finds humor in the chaos, the way it turns inconvenience into amusement, the way it resists bitterness like it's allergic to it. You've trained yourself slowly and fiercely to look for light, and that has made all the difference. The kind of laughter you carry is contagious, not in the way of comedy clubs or cartoons, but in the way fire spreads when the wood is dry. People near you begin to soften, begin to remember that life is not meant to be endured without joy. They see your face glow when you tell a story, and they feel it, that rush of oxygen, that flicker of freedom. You laugh like someone who's made peace with not having all the answers, like someone who knows that control is an illusion and that surrender doesn't have to be solemn. You've made joy your companion, not your reward. And when the world gets heavy, because it always will, you pull laughter close and say, "Let's get through this together." And it does. It lifts you. It doesn't erase the hurt, but it reminds you there's more to the picture. You didn't preserve your youth with silence. You preserved it with sound. Sound that came from survival. Sound that said, "I am still here." Sound that told sorrow, "You will not have the final word." And so your face does not wear the weight of time. It wears the memory of laughter. The joy tucked into creases. The music stitched into the corners of your smile. Not because you escaped the years, but because you refuse to carry them all. You laugh some of the pain away. And in that laugh, time lets you go. You step into a room and something shifts. It's not your clothes. It's not your voice. It's something quieter, something deeper. It clings to the air around you like jasmine at dusk. Soft, familiar, hard to name, but impossible to ignore. It is peace. And you wear it like a signature, not sprayed on, not temporary, but lived in, stitched through every fiber of your being. You didn't buy this peace, you didn't borrow it, you became it. It wasn't always so. There were years when storms found you easily, inside and out. When your breath came short, your thoughts raced, your chest stayed tight. You know what it is to lose sleep to questions with no answers. You felt the ache of holding too much and still being told to smile. But somewhere between the breakdowns and the rebuilding, you learned the art of being still. You began to put down what was never yours to carry. You stopped answering to every knock at the door of your nervous system. And slowly, the noise quieted, the wind calmed, and in its place bloomed something rare. Now, when people look at you, they see someone unbothered, but they don't always see the journey that got you there. They don't see the nights you sat alone and sorted through the rubble of your thoughts, the mornings you forced your shoulders to unclench, your jaw to release. They don't see the prayers whispered, the breaths counted, the boundaries drawn. They just see the result, the softness, the glow, the ease. They think it's luck. They think it's nature, but it's neither. It's practice. You've trained yourself to walk away from chaos that doesn't belong to you. You've become fluent in silence, not the cold kind, but the sacred kind. You know how to hold space without holding pain. You've stopped confusing reaction with power, and you've learned that the loudest voice in the room is often the most afraid. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard. Your peace speaks for you. You've learned that peace is not passive. It is not weak. It does not mean smiling through disrespect or tolerating what wounds you. No, the peace you wear is fierce. It has teeth. It knows when to walk out, when to let go, when to close the door gently but firmly. And still, it smells like grace. It feels like exhale. It rests like truth. You didn't just decide to be peaceful. You chose over and over not to let other people's storms determine your weather. You chose not to internalize what wasn't yours. You stopped setting yourself on fire to warm people who would still complain about the smoke. And that choice, it changed your face. Stress, you see, is not just a feeling, it's a sculptor. It leaves its fingerprints in the creases of the brow, the tightness of the mouth, the heaviness around the eyes. But peace is a healer. It smooths what worry would carve. It lifts what tension would pull down. It lets light return to your skin like a sunrise on water. That is why you look as you do, not just youthful, but rested, not just rested, but whole. Because peace is more than a feeling. It's a way of standing. It's the way you open your hands when others clench theirs. The way you listen, not to respond, but to understand. The way you keep your power by not giving it away to every petty insult, every imagined offense. And when people are around you, they notice something they can't quite explain. Their own breath slows, their shoulders loosen, they laugh more freely, they feel safe. That's what your peace does. It calms the room before you even speak. It reminds others what is possible, what is available, when we stop living from our wounds and start living from our worth. Your peace tells a story that you survived without hardening, that you healed without hiding, that you found quiet without running from the world. You don't escape life. You face it and you soften it. You carry beauty in the pauses. You bring warmth to the stillness. You move with the kind of gentleness that only the strong can afford. And the most miraculous part, you offer that peace without needing credit. You leave it behind like a fragrance, not so people will praise you, but so they'll remember just for a moment that calm is contagious. So when people ask why you don't look your age, they're asking the wrong question. They should ask how you've made it this far without bitterness. They should ask what it feels like to walk through fire and not smell of smoke. They should ask how it's possible that in a world addicted to urgency, you chose ease. And not only chose it, you became it. You feed yourself differently than most, not just with greens or grains or glasses of water, though you've learned to honor your body, but the real fuel, the kind that keeps your spirit bright and your skin alive, is wonder. You rise each day and choose to nourish yourself with awe, not the big, loud kind, not fireworks or fortune or fame, but the small, sacred marvels that others miss. A sudden breeze through a cracked window, the way the sun scatters itself across the kitchen floor like gold dust, the quiet of early morning when the world hasn't yet remembered its noise. These are the meals that fill you. You've kept your curiosity fed, even when the world tried to starve it. You refuse to let cynicism take root where your questions once lived. You still ask why, still ask what if, still pause to stare when the sky turns strange or the trees seem to whisper. You've never outgrown your sense of amazement, and that is what makes you glow. You consume beauty like it's necessary, because it is. You feast on the laughter of strangers, on the kindness in someone's eyes, on the mystery of a child's mind. You drink poetry like water. You taste music in your marrow. And when the world tastes bitter, you find something sweet to hold on to. That is how you stay young. It's not denial. You know the world is bruised. You've carried grief in your body and heartbreak in your hands, but you never let it take your appetite for wonder. And that choice, quiet as it may be, is revolutionary, because there is a kind of aging that has nothing to do with time and everything to do with losing your appetite for the miraculous. When people stop being surprised, when they stop looking up, when they stop finding joy in the smallest places, that is when the light begins to fade from their eyes. But you kept looking up. You kept saying, "Isn't that something?" You kept pointing out the shapes in the clouds and the way a single leaf can turn red in the middle of summer. You kept touching the world with reverence. You learned that wonder is not childish. It is ancient, it is holy, and it is essential. Your skin holds the memory of joy. Your voice carries the music of someone who's still impressed by the ordinary. That's why people can't quite place your age, because something in you has stayed tender, alert, awake. You haven't let the heaviness of life weigh down your gaze. You've stayed hungry for the light. You eat moments slowly. You savor time. You don't just pass through your days, you dwell in them. That mindfulness, that willingness to see again and again what others overlook, keeps your soul bright. It shows on your face. It glimmers in the lines that curve with your smile. You've made it a habit to look closely, to pay attention. You compliment the moon. You name the flowers. You take pictures not to post, but to remember. You are an artist, not by trade, but by practice. By the way you let the world move you, by the way you allow wonder to alter your mood, your mind, your moment. You aren't searching for youth, you're feeding the part of you that never forgot how to be amazed. And there's something rare in that, something that can't be bottled or bought. People spend fortunes trying to recreate the glow you've sustained simply by staying in love with life. You've refused the diet of despair. You've declined the bitterness offered in every headline. You've turned down the tasteless banquet of cynicism. Instead, you've fed your joy. You've nourished your hope. You've let gratitude rise like bread in your belly. You've seasoned your days with perspective and spiced your silence with imagination. You've created your own recipe for staying vibrant, and it starts with choosing to notice what others miss, to notice what others dismiss, to notice what the world has stopped naming beautiful. Your soul is still well-fed, not because it's been untouched, but because you've learned what it truly craves: connection, stillness, surprise, color, texture, wonder. And every time you make room for that wonder, it returns the favor. It refreshes your face. It lifts your voice. It brings sparkle to your gaze that no eye cream can match. It reminds your body how to feel alive, not just functional, but inspired. Because when you eat from the hand of wonder, you digest joy. And when joy lives inside you, it shows, not in the absence of years, but in the presence of light. There is a kind of beauty that doesn't come from creams or serums or the shimmer of highlighters under vanity bulbs. It's the kind that breathes from within, soft and radiant, like morning light through sheer curtains. It's the glow of someone who is not just loved, but knows it, not just admired in passing, but cherished in stillness. You carry that glow. You are not starved for affection. You are not aching for approval like so many who wander through their lives hoping to be seen. No, your eyes say different. They say you've been held, not just by arms, but by words that wrapped around your spirit and told you again and again, you matter, you are safe, you belong, and you believed it. That belief shows up in how you walk, how you speak, how you listen. It hums beneath your smile. It gives a kind of grace to your movements, a patience to your presence. There's no grasping in you, no reaching to prove your worth. You already know the truth of it. You are loved and you have made peace with that truth, like someone who has stopped resisting warmth. This kind of love is not always romantic, though it may include romance. It is not always loud, though it often echoes. It is not perfect, because love rarely is, but it is real, and it is enough. You've been loved by people who've seen your shadow and still stayed, who've heard the tremble in your voice and leaned in closer, not away, who didn't need you to be flawless, only honest. And because of that, you have learned to rest inside yourself, to live unhidden, to breathe without apology. And that restfulness is its own kind of magic. It smooths the years from your face because you are not bracing against the world. You are not flinching. You are not building a new mask every morning. You are soft where others are stiff, open where others are guarded, and that openness reads as youth, because it is youth, the youth that comes not from age, but from ease. You are loved, and you know it. That knowing makes your hands gentler, your words kinder. It makes you generous without depletion, because you are not giving from emptiness. You are pouring from a full cup again and again, not to prove yourself, but because it overflows. And when people say, "You look so peaceful," or "You haven't changed," what they are really sensing is that well of love inside you that never ran dry. They don't have the language for it, so they call it beauty. They call it glow. But it is love. Love resting in your bones like light in stained glass. You didn't always feel this way. There were years when you questioned every compliment. Years when you folded in on yourself like a letter no one bothered to read. You have known loneliness that echoed. You have cried in places no one could find you. But love found you anyway. It walked through the back door of your silence. It sat beside your fear. It whispered into your tiredness, "I see you," and you listen. Love did not fix everything, but it made everything softer. And in that softness, you bloomed. Because when love is real, when it's consistent, when it shows up without conditions, it changes how we carry ourselves. You don't have to chase attention when you already feel adored. You don't have to twist yourself into something smaller when you are loved for your full size. You don't have to numb or pretend or armor up. You just have to be. And that being becomes beauty in its truest form. There's a reason children glow. It's not just their skin or their energy. It's the simplicity of their love, the way they trust it, the way they believe they are worthy of it. You've held on to that even through all the storms. You've protected that knowing even when it cracked. You've returned to it again and again like home. And now love lives in your laugh. It lives in your stillness. It lives in the way you look people in the eye, fully present, unafraid to be known. There are people who see their reflection in your love and remember they are lovable too. You remind them not by preaching, but by being, by showing them what it looks like to be grounded in worth, not through ego, but through truth. Your presence says you don't have to earn it. You are already enough. That's why you don't carry the bitterness that wears others down. You don't carry the resentment that ages the heart. You've let love sand down the sharp corners. You've let it teach you how to stay soft in a hard world. And when people ask, "What's your secret?" you smile, not because it's a secret, but because it's a truth so simple, most forget to believe it. You are loved, and you know it. The world will ask, "What's your secret?" Let them, because the real answer isn't in a bottle, it's in your bones. You don't look young, you are young, because you live like time is a blessing, not a burden, and blessings never grow old.